we just came from your amazing lecture this morning about AI readiness,
Mhm.
and we had to bring you here straight to the studio because this is a subject that we are very, very, very curious about. Well, AI readiness, crisis ready, or human ready? Which one matters the most, right? Well, in your note, you talked about readiness and what it actually means to be ready, and the words, the significance of the words wellness and well-being. So, in that note, we would like to ask you, what do you think is the most important skill as a professional when a crisis hit between those three? We should be more AI ready to deal with that technology, to be dealing with the crisis on their actual problem, like technical problems, or more of an empathic way, human centered.
Hmm. Um, to be honest, it does seem that we are living in this AI, focused world. But for me, the answer will always be the last one, to be, human ready. No matter what happens in communication, in power relations, in strategic communication, you do need to focus on the human, because what we are doing at the core of it, no matter what add-ons we have, we focus on building relationships. So whether those relationships are, AI mediated, or are impacted by AI, or are developed in a crisis or precede a crisis, no matter what happens, the constant is the human element, and the human relationship. So for sure, I would go with at any moment developing the capabilities that allow us to understand, develop, maintain relationships, both for our organizations, but also within our profession.
Amazing. And talking about the human part of it, well being and wellness are two words that are very trendy right now, we
Mm.
can say. And we would like to ask you if you think it's a luxury to be ready when a crisis hit. Like in our professions today, we are not able to have time to think. And that, how
Yeah.
does that connect?
That's a very good question, and to be honest, it's a question that I do think sometimes when I'm interacting with my students, or when I'm thinking about a certain case study that I want to discuss with them, because I think it's not just readiness that's a privilege, but also just thinking about well-being, and thinking about well-being as an option, whether you get the time to think more about well-being or practice it. Even having it as an option, I think it's a privilege. And you do see this privilege, acting out, or being present from, I don't know, maybe a geographical perspective, or a social perspective, financial perspective. It's such a distinct mindset, thinking about you being in that position where you can opt for, I don't know, a spa day. Let's go for the most basic, right? Or being able to set boundaries, emotional boundaries, right? Or being able to have options in your professional development, right? I always tell my students that we are in such a privileged position to be able to think about our future, both them and I, in terms of possibilities. I think that that in itself brings such a well-being mindset that we need to defend, and maybe extend, in our organizational settings, which sometimes can actually encroach, overlap with our personal lives. So this is actually a very interesting question, a very interesting topic. I do think for a multitude of reasons that we don't always get to either think in terms of well-being or act upon it.
We're still talking about the readiness of it all in the professional communication professionals. We would like to ask you for one advice or three for the pillars that you talk, one for each pillar. Besides the mindset that we are already trying to work as professionals in communications, drawing the line between personal and professional, it's still very hard, especially for us beginners, and not only in the professional, the communication, the practice, but us in school, in uni, researching this. It's still very hard for us to keep that mindset always in our priorities. And we would like one advice or three on how to stay on course.
I would say that just in line with what we've been discussing today, I would say that accepting the fact that we are human and we will not always be successful is a very good starting point. I was mentioning today during the speech that there was something that someone told me at some point that you are more than your deadlines.
Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah, and that actually generated a shift in how I'm organizing myself in relation to what I'm doing in my life. Just because it put me in a different relationship with time, with responsibility. It's not that I'm running away from responsibility, but I do know that, or I do acknowledge that sometimes I can put too much pressure on myself. And I've been doing that since I was a student. And actually, no one ever told me that, you can actually either say no or ask for, an extension, or think about time as being a little bit more relative and fluid rather than just set. And that creates a lot of, stress if you didn't have this a little bit more fluid, but still responsible relationship to time. So I would say that a good starting point is to really understand the human nature of our activity, and then try to, and the second one would be to understand our limits, our boundaries, what we are able to do, what we are not able to do, what we will be able to do and work towards that, what we are willing to sacrifice at a certain point in our lives and what we are not willing to sacrifice. And the third one would be to start whenever we can and whenever we become aware of this, start building spaces in our intercommunicating spaces, but different not necessarily geographical spaces, but interactional spaces with the people in our lives. I think that when you have a collection of different spaces configured for practice, for profession, for school, for everyday life, for family, when you have a good collection of that, things will be a little bit more easy to manage, just because having that plurality of spaces will enable you to be ready for whatever comes your way, because you will have that diversity of experiences. And because you are creating these safe spaces, talking about psychological safety, from today, because you have these safe spaces, you will be in a better position to replicate them in spaces that you are not accustomed to, or that are new for you. So I would say that these would be three things to do. Accept your humanity, learn yourself as much as you can, and then create this initial safe spaces that you will be able in time to replicate or use, as a grounding for whatever comes your way, so that you will be actually ready, even if there is uncertainty. Yeah.
Amazing, Anca. Thank you so much. We would like to hear more about your current researches, what's going on in Romania.
Right. So right now I'm actually looking a little bit into a more practical or empirical actually approach to the various well-being and readiness projects that I've been developing. So I want to, I'm working towards developing measurement scales so we can move from this conceptual discussion about well-being and readiness towards something more instrument-oriented that you can actually use. And I'm trying to see how this can be linked to various types of responsibilities that we have in our lives. A lot of the times as communication professionals, we deal with this responsibility towards our organization. But that is so much more nuanced. You have the responsibility, not just towards the organization, but responsibility towards the society, responsibility towards yourself, responsibility towards the profession that you are part of. So there are so many layers to this, and I think there are intersections. So I'm trying to explore this, but from a more empirical perspective. And then something that is in a completely different but to some extent connected, is I'm looking into CSR, but the CSR of media organizations in context of crisis, conflict, and war. So Romania is very close. We have a border with Ukraine. So that actually triggered, a lot of reflection on what our role is, but also what the role of our institutions is, in actually creating these safe spaces or these transitional spaces for refugees, for example, right? So is the role of a media organization just to, have this newscast and that's it, or can you be something more? So that's another area that I'm currently exploring. And I do have a few other topics, but I'm trying to think whether or not this is I should finish some of them before starting others. I'm talking a little bit too much about well-being compared to how little I'm setting up myself to actually practice that. But to be honest, I think it's an incredible privilege to be able to be in such a position where you like everything that you're doing. So I don't take that lightly, and I try to make the most of it. I've been working quite a lot towards that, so I'm kind of living my professional dream. So that really feeds into my well-being and mental state. So it's a little bit of a problematic situation, because when you're late with a deadline, for example, you are late in the face of people that you like. So that's even more difficult. But it's a tough problem to have. I'm not complaining. Yeah.
We can't
Amazing.
wait to see everything that's coming. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this talk. It was very needed. We would like to thank our listeners and our viewers for staying with us. I hope you all had a great time, just like I had. Well, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. This podcast has been brought to you by the first year of the Masters in Strategic Communication at University of Interior.